Hi guys, this is a tutorial on how to do the cutout shoulders for the Stonepoint cutout shoulder top. Now this is my colorful prototype that we're using. It didn't originally have the 20 stitches from the shoulder to the armpit that you leave in open. It didn't originally have that. I have already done the neckline to make it easier. It didn't originally have that, but what I did was, you could put this on any top. What I did was I went around and took a 5.75 hook. Most of you will use a 6. I just crochet very loosely, and I just added some extra stitches so that I had 20 on each side. So we're going to think halfway down. 20 stitches is how many you need on each side for the small, medium, and large. For the plus size, you're going to need a 23 stitches for the 1x and 2x, and the 3x and up you're going to need 26 stitches. So attach your yarn right in the middle, right at 10 stitches, and then slip stitch all the way up to finish this part, because this is the last time we won't be working on anything else. So slip stitch, you just yarn, insert your hook, bringing your yarn through both loops, and that's how you slip stitch around. And I suggest slip stitching on the edge of any of your garments that you possibly can to finish them so they don't get overstretched. There's still some stretch to it, but it won't get misshapen as easy. It'll stand up to washing. The Premier Home cotton that we're using, Premier Home cotton blend that we're using, is also, you can put it in the dryer. I wash everything in a mesh bag and then put it in the dryer in a mesh bag, and it comes out perfectly. So we're going to go down 10, we're going to go up 10 stitches and down 10 stitches on each side so that we have 10 stitches from the bottom in the armpit, both sides of the armpit. Let's see, let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and one more. Okay, so now we're going to immediately go into the shoulder, or the cutout shoulder. We will leave this alone. This is completely done right here. All the rest of our work will be down here. We're going to chain 2, which counts as the first double crochet, and then the very next stitch we're going to insert a cluster of 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet. We're going, and so there's our first cluster. This will count as a double crochet. Here's our first cluster in the very next stitch. We're going to skip, I'll make sure you can see this, we're going to skip 2 stitches and add a cluster, which is 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet. And because we're only doing 3 clusters, I won't need to pause it. We're going to skip 2 stitches again, 1, 2, and we're going to add a cluster right here. Now don't worry if your count isn't exact. I'll show you what to do about that. It needs to be just halfway up. So this is the only one where you've got to decide on a little bit of placement, and then the rest are your foundation is already there for you. Now you would skip 2, and you're going to want to put a single crochet in the armpit, which would be right here, but there ends up being 3. So we're going to anchor this. We're going to skip 2, and we're going to anchor this with a single crochet. Now on the other side, we need to skip 2 and go right into another cluster, but we don't want a gap here, so You can always, if you have a gap or you just weren't careful about counting, it doesn't matter. Just put a couple of, just put one or just put a few single crochets in there so you don't have a gap. I'm just going to put 2 in there. That way you won't have a gappy armpit, and this will just be ignored on the next round or on the next row. And so I'm skipping 2, and I'm going to put a cluster in this side to match the other side. So, and if you don't like this gap, you can always just do a single crochet. It's just my crocheting is loose. And to fill in the gap, I'll go ahead and do that so you guys can see. Just in case you know you have a gappy, you don't want gaps there. This is nice and light and airy, but then if you do put a single crochet in there, you still need to just go into this stitch here. And then the next row we will turn and do the next row exactly the same. But what we'll do is we will just go into this stitch right here. And then we should get rid of all the gaps that way. So you skip 2, do another shell or another cluster. Sorry about that. And I will show you this. I will give you a really close look at this so you can make sure you know what you're doing. And this foundation, once you get this foundation row in, the next few rows are really, really easy. Okay, so we have chain 2, which counts as a double crochet. We have 3 clusters. Then we are anchoring it with a single crochet, and I showed you how to fix any gaps. And then we're gonna have to do the same thing on the other side. So we need a 3rd cluster. I'm going to skip 2 stitches, put in the 3rd cluster, and then to match the other side, we're going to put a double crochet right here. And this is how the next 4 rows, or the next 3 rows, 4 rows total, are going to look. So we have, this is what we have on each side. So we're only working in the lower part. Let me show you. We're only working in the lower part. This is done. We're only working in the lower part, the armpit on each side. So sorry, I have a little bit of a cold or allergies. Chain 2. I know you would normally chain 3, but we're going to chain 2 so it's not real gappy. And then right in the top of the chain 1 space, we're going to put a cluster in the top of each chain 1 space. So I'll get started on that. So there's no more counting or guesswork for the next few rows, because we're just going to place a cluster in the top of each cluster. So place a cluster in the top, in the chain 1 space of each cluster, and I will meet you here. Okay, so I've done 3 clusters. I have a chain 2, 3 clusters, and now we're at the armpit, and this is where we add an extra stitch or 2 to get rid of gaps. And at the armpit, throughout the entire thing, throughout the entire sleeve, we will be anchoring this with a single crochet, and then immediately going on to the other side of the armpit and putting a cluster in the chain 1 space of the top of each cluster from the previous row. So this is how this looks. So the armpit's going to look like this. It actually looks very nice. It's not gappy. It does look very nice. I'm a little loose right here, but once you get it on, it's a really pretty design. So we're going to continue to add a cluster to each chain one space. I will show you how this looks. When I'm done, I'm almost done here. It's 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 double crochets. And then we're here. See how this is beginning to look? No longer working in here. This is finished. That's why we slip stitch it. And here's how it's beginning to look. Now when I say bring the sides of the sleeves together, I'm going to mean bring these two parts together, but this needs to be wider. And I'll show you how that's supposed to look. So in the top of the chain 2 space from the previous row, we're going to do a double crochet. So each row basically is just going to stack up on top of each other just like this. So chain 2, turn, and put a cluster in the top of each chain 2 space until you get to the armpit right here. I will meet you there. Okay, I'm at the armpit. Again, this will end up being a really pretty lacy part of it, but you're really not going to see it. I did my 3. Oops, let's get this right. I did my 3 shells stacked right on top, and now I'm going to anchor it in the armpits so that we can not have too much bulk. I'm going to single crochet in the top of the single crochet from the previous row, and then I'm going to go straight into a cluster in the top of the next cluster. So add a cluster to each chain 1 space of the previous row, and I will meet you right here. Now, we're almost done with the tricky part. Again, we're going to do a double crochet in the top of this chain 2 to stack it right on top. And the idea is for this sleeve, for visual purposes, this sleeve is going to look like it was cut down from the top. It's going to look like it was just cut open and brought down like this. So obviously this one is not tall enough because it needs to visually look like it goes all the way up to here. So we're going to do one more row for the small, and I'll show you how that's done in a round. Chain 2 and turn. Put a cluster in the top of each chain 1 space of the previous cluster. And look how pretty this is, and this is just the armpit that no one will see. Put a single crochet here, and then a cluster in the top of each one of these, and I will meet you right here. Now this is the instructions for the small. This will not be for the medium or large. Okay, so we have enough that visually it looks like this was attached here and then cut away. We have enough for that. This is going to be for a small. For any sleeve you're doing like this, if you want to use it on a different pattern, you're basically going to cut the sleeve in half. And it needs to be kind of big. It needs to be a little bit bigger than you would normally, this armhole opening. But anyhow, this is how you will be continuing in the round. Now we're going to switch. We were rows. This is how this looks, kind of like a little butterfly. This is how this looks. And we're going to go into the round. We need to still do a double crochet in the top of the chain 2 from the previous row. And this is where it says to attach the sleeves together, this is where we do this. Now this is for the small only. It will be different for the medium to large, and I will show you that, but I'm going to show you the small right now. I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to attach these two together right here with a slip stitch. Okay, so what I did was I started working in the round by attaching these two together. Now I'm going to turn this and we're going to continue on. Now we're working in the round for the small only. We have 6 clusters. We're going to be adding a cluster and working in the round. And how we do that is we will slip stitch. We're going to slip stitch over to this first chain 1 space. It's real clear in the instructions, but being able to see it will help. So I'm slip stitching over to this. It won't show. It'll be right on the inside. And then I'm going to the chain 1 space and I'm going to chain 2. That's going to be the first leg of the cluster. This is going to count as the first double crochet of the cluster. So we're going to do a second double crochet, chain 1, and 2 double crochets to make a cluster. So this is how this is supposed to look. It looks a little odd right now. Let me show you another view. It's a little odd, but we're just attaching these. So we're gonna continue around, putting a cluster in the top of every chain 1 space, and then remember, still in the armpit, we're going to do a single crochet in the armpit, and I'm going to meet you, go all around, putting a cluster in the top of each cluster. I'm going to meet you here. So continue around, and I will meet you right there. Okay, I've continued around. My ball is always in the way. Okay, I've continued around and I've put 6 total. 1, 2, 3, attached with a single crochet, done 3 more. I have 6 total, and we're going to add the 7th and work in the round for the small only. I'm going to show you how to do the medium large onto this. Now we have this chain 2 space. This is where we're going to begin. This is where we're going to add another cluster in this space. And these turn out nice and soft. They're really stretchy. They're very comfortable. It's one of the most comfortable sleeves I've done. Now we're where we started. So we need to attach these two together, and all we do is find the top of this chain 2 and slip stitch them together. And now we're working in the round, and we have a total of 7 clusters. We still need to slip stitch over to the chain 1 space and do another chain 2, which becomes the first leg of the cluster, of the double crochet of the cluster. Sorry, having some problems with focus. I will show you what it looks like. We'll do a nice close-up so you can see that you're on the right track. This is really fun to do, really easy to size. I hope you'll try it for lots of different things to just give some variety. Okay, so we have the arm, we have the shoulder opening, we have the appearance that it was cut out from the top. And then we are beginning to work in the round. So we put a cluster right here, and it actually looks really pretty, and put it around the entire chain 2 space. we have a cluster right here, and then we slip stitched, whoops, here, let's stay in, we slip stitched over to the chain 1 space, we chain 2, and we made a cluster, and then we're going to continue in the round until we get here, and then we're going to attach it to the beginning chain 2, and we're going to keep going around till it's the length that you want. When it's the length that you want, just put 5 double crochets in the chain 1 space. You can finish it with a slip stitch if you want. Now I'm going to pull this out so I can show you what we need to do for the medium to large, because this, I have bigger arms and shoulders, so this would not be big enough for me. So it's the modification is real easy. This is actually easier for the medium to large than it is for the small. The small is just really different. Okay, so we've got 4 rows stacked up here. But we're not going to start our rounds until we have 5 rows. So see how this can look either way. Look, this really has room for another row. We wouldn't want to go much above that. That would look odd. So we chain 2, we turned it over. We're going to go back, and this is just completely normal. This is for the medium large. For the small, we start the round at row 4. For the medium to large, we start in the round at row 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to turn. We're going to put a cluster in the top of each chain 1 space. We're going to single crochet in the pretty armpit there, and then we're going to continue and put a cluster in the top of these, and I will meet you here. Okay, this is row number 5, and we're going to begin the round. We're going to begin doing a round for the medium to large. We still have 6 clusters, so we really need, for the small we added a 7th cluster, but we really need 8 clusters. This is where we need it to get bigger, and we need to begin in the round. So we're right here where we would normally do a double crochet. And we are going to do that, but we're going to treat this like a chain 1 space, and we're going to put an entire cluster right here in this space to begin in the round. And this is a really versatile pattern, so once you know how to do it, you really could make any sleeve look like this. Now, when it says attach the 2 sides together, this is what they mean. This is the armpit, and these are the 2 sides we're going to be attaching. So, as you can see, I treated this as a chain 1 space and put a cluster in the top. We're going to attach it by doing the same thing over here. We're going to treat this as a chain 1 space and put a cluster there. And this ends up looking really pretty. Once you put it on, it's really got a fun design. And we're just doing 2. Let me get it. I'm just trying to let it focus. I'm trying to work a little slower here. 2 double crochets, chain 1, and then 2 double crochets, and I'll give you a really good look at it when I'm done. Okay, so we attached them together by using this chain 1 space, or chain 2 space, or the double crochet space. We used it to put in a cluster and attach the 2 sides together. And then we would go to the very next chain 1 space in the top of a cluster and put another cluster, and now we have 8, which is perfect for a medium to large. We now have 8 clusters in the round, and we would continue around putting a cluster in the top of every chain one space. We're still going to, when we get to the armpit, we're still going to do a single crochet. We're going to continue around until we get to the beginning. And when we do, we're going to continue around to here, and I will meet you there. Now we're where we started. Where we started adding, where we added, oops, let me get in mine. This is where we added two. This is where we started in the round, and we added both of these clusters, and we're going to continue on into the top of each of these clusters. And I made the sleeves down to my elbows. Once you're in the round, you could change patterns. You could continue it down like for a 3/4 sleeve, a full sleeve. I just did it because it's kind of a light, airy spring summer top. And that's why I stopped where I did. That's where I liked it, and it covered up as much as I wanted. But once you get in the round, you really could switch to just a single crochet, or you can make it more open. You could just change, you could change that all you wanted. And see how I'm just continuing in the round. And all the decisions have been fixed. It's just real easy to see what you need to do next. I will show you though. There really isn't a next. I will show you. We're now just continuing in the round, and see how it flares out just a little bit. I found that that's very comfortable. Let's see, I did, I'm not sure how many more rows. I did about 5 more rounds on mine. So I did 5 here and then 5 more. And then my very last one, I put 5 double crochets in, so there wasn't this gap here. I didn't finish mine with a slip stitch because I wanted mine to kind of stretch out and flare out a little bit. But this is how this is done, and you just keep continuing around. Like I said, you could switch to any other stitch you want once you get the round going. This is how this looks for the medium to large. This is exactly how you will do this for the plus sizes also. The small, where you're just adding 1 instead, that is for that pattern, for that size only. The rest of the sizes will all work like this. They'll just have, you know, this has 3 clusters to begin on each side. The other ones will have 4 or 5 clusters to begin on each side, and that will be the only difference. So that's all there is to it. Let me know if you have any questions. Here's a good look. Here's a good look at the neckline. And because you're putting a single crochet in every half double crochet row, it brings the neckline in really pretty and covers your bra. And let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.